well done for taking this on. The 7-point transformational mandala exercise. It's taken me over 15 years to refine this. And what it does is it enables us to distinguish what disempowering interpretations we may be subconsciously holding about ourselves and the world around us that cause us to then subconsciously be avoiding experiencing the reaction to those interpretations rather than actually becoming successful. Now, that might sound confusing, but it will get clearer. This exercise is going to literally enable you to break through those interpretations and to all of a sudden step into a whole new, unexpected realm where you're going to be able to take actions that you never thought of taking. That's going to enable you to very quickly be able to experience a completely new and inspirational future. So, before we get into this, I want to make sure you've got 3 things in place. Number 1, you've got one whole uninterrupted hour. It's really important that you have this. I mean, no mobile phone going off, no laptop, no one in your house or anything. Make sure you've got a whole hour all to yourself for this. Secondly, make sure you've got some writing paper and a reliable pen. You might be tempted to want to type this out on a mobile phone or on your computer. Don't do that. Trust me on this. Get a writing paper and a pen, because writing this out is actually going to enable you to deepen the transformation because it actually triggers more cognitive behavior in your brain. So get those items together and let's go for it. Okay, so let's get into this. So on screen you can now see the 7-point transformational mandala. It's made up of 7 sections that we're going to travel through. Now, you don't need to understand them, and in fact at this point what I'd like to say is don't try understanding where this is going. Don't try analysing what the next stage is or trying to work out what it is that you're going to have to do next. Just stay in each section of this inquiry as I guide you through it, and I promise you if you do this attentively with full presence and focus, you will break through to something extraordinary. Okay. So looking at the 7-point transformational mandala, you can now see the first section, which is occurrence. Everybody has a different way that the world occurs. The way the world occurs for me is different to how the world occurs for you. And we can only begin this inquiry once we can get a sense of the occurrence of the world that we have that we then want to transform. So on your paper, if you can write down the first title, occurrence. So write that down, occurrence. So if I was to ask you, how do you feel when things don't go to plan? Or how do you feel when you've got an appointment with somebody and they don't turn up or they're late? Or how do you feel when somebody criticizes you? So I'm going to be taking you through how I experience each of these sections so that you've got a kind of a reference point for what it is I'm looking for from you to enable you to have a transformational breakthrough. So for me, if things don't go to plan, I start to get worried that they're never going to work out. And I start to assume that they're always going to be like that and they're going to take forever. So the way I feel, or the way the world occurs for me when things don't go to plan, is I feel worried, or I might feel anxious, or I could be feeling stressed. If somebody doesn't turn up for an appointment, I might feel let down, disappointed, right? So what I'm looking for from you is just 2-3 elements like that. So write those down and then we're ready for the next section. Anytime, just stop this video before going on to the next section. Now we're on to the second section, physiology. So bringing yourself back to the first section that we filled out, occurrence. How do you physically feel these sensations? So for instance, for me, the anxiety, I would feel it in my chest. And what would I feel in my chest? I would feel tightness, okay? So if you now write down the second section, physiology, and give me 2-3 bullet points of how you feel these sensations. So I would write down tightness in my chest. Stress, how do you feel the stress? Some of my clients say that they feel like pins and needles around their head, or they feel hot flushes. Some of my other clients say they feel pins and needles in their hands. Sometimes it's a knot in my stomach. So bringing yourself back to these feelings, how do you feel when things don't go to plan or someone lets you down? And once you've got a sensation of those feelings, where in your body do you feel those feelings? And how do you physically feel those sensations? If you can write the third title down, which is recalling. Now, the reason why I take you through those initial 2 stages is because it has us get present to our body and to how we feel these sensations in our body. And what I've discovered throughout my year's work is that these sensations actually are our access to our memory, that our memories are not in our brains. This is what I've discovered through hands-on experience. So I'm now going to ask you a question. As you allow yourself to get present to these sensations and these feelings, when was the first time you remember feeling these sensations? When was the first time you remember physically feeling these sensations? Now, don't try thinking your way to those memories. Try feeling your way to those memories. Do you remember feeling those sensations when you lived in the house that you live now, or did you begin feeling those feelings in the house before that, or the house before that, or the house before that? Did you feel these sensations when you were at college, or earlier in secondary school, or earlier in primary school, or even earlier than that, in your very first nursery school? Check in. When was the first time you remember physically feeling these sensations? And what happened? Did something happen around your mum? Did something happen around your dad, your father? Maybe it was something with a neighbour, or maybe you were possibly bullied at school. Maybe a teacher shouted at you. Maybe it was a moment when you just felt lonely or not noticed or not seen. Whatever one comes to your mind first, I guarantee you it's the one. Now, these feelings may have evolved as you've got older, but somehow as you allow yourself to experience these feelings, you're brought back somehow to this memory. So for me, when I initially had this breakthrough that then led me to creating the 7-point transformational mandala, was when through my transformational work with my coaches, I was brought back to an event when I was 3 years old. And I was sat in a double push pram, and my brother was next to me. I'm 3, he's 1. And my mother, she ran into the shop to go and buy something. And when she came out, she ignored me and she gave it to my brother. I got really angry with my brother because he'd taken all the love and attention away from me. So to get my revenge, I leant over and I bit his ear really hard. He screamed out crying and crying and crying. And my father saw this, so he runs over and he says, "No, you mustn't do that. He's your brother. You must love your brother." And in that moment, I got what I was thinking. But that's the next section. For now, stay with this. When was the first time you physically remember feeling these sensations? And what happened? And what I'd like you to do is write it down like it's an event that's happening now. So, I am so years old. I am standing, or I am sitting, yeah? And then, who's with you? My is with me. And what gets said or what happens? You only need to write 5-6 lines just to enable you to get present to that moment again. Well done, and I'll see you in the next section. Okay, well done. So here we are at the 4th section. So if you can write down the 4th section, which is interpretation. Interpretation. So what I'd like you to do now is bring yourself back to that event, that moment, and just bring yourself back to feeling the sensations that were happening at the time. And in that moment, you'd have been thinking something that starts with I, or I'm not. So when I was there in that push pram and my father was there saying, no, you mustn't do that. He's your brother. You must love your brother. I got that in that moment. I was thinking, I'm just not good enough. Nobody wants me, right? And if you look deeper into this, you'll recognize that the reason why you felt these sensations was because of what you were thinking at the time. And I guarantee that what was happening was that you discovered yourself to be in a certain way or interpreted yourself to be in a certain way. And as you did that, the world then happened to you. There was nothing you could do about it, and so you came up with some conclusion. Now, I would say 9 out of 10 people that I've taken through in this journey on a one-on-one basis has discovered a disempowering interpretation. And we've all got these. Absolutely every single one of us has these disempowering interpretations. The disempowering interpretations I've had other people say they are things like, I'm not good enough, I don't fit in, I don't belong, there's something wrong with me, I'm bad, I'm small, I'm weak, I'm not in control. So what is it for you? Bring yourself back to that moment. There you are. It's happening again. And in that moment, you are thinking, I'm, or I'm not. Now, you might be thinking, I was thinking, I don't want to be here. Okay. But why don't you want to be there? Because I'm what? And you want to get to a point where you've got like a kind of description, an interpretation of yourself and the world around you. Yeah? So take your time on this. Spend a little bit of time reflecting. If you need to, stop this video and I'll see you in the next section. Well done for taking this on. Here we are at section 5, which is breakthrough. So what I'd like you to do now is write down the 5th section, breakthrough. So far we've been working in the realm of feelings. How do I feel when things don't go to plan? How do I feel when somebody lets me down? How do I feel these sensations physically? When was the first time I remember physically feeling these sensations? So far we've been working in the realm of feelings. What we're going to do now is we're going to work in the realm of being. So underneath this section, breakthrough, I'd like you to put a subtitle. So in brackets, I'd like you to write underneath breakthrough the words unwanted impacts. That's unwanted impacts, like an impact, something hitting something else, but S, plural, so more than one. Unwanted impacts. So what I'd like you to look at this is this way, this interpretation, instead of a way of feeling, as a way of being. So for instance, for me, being I'm not good enough, nobody wants me, what are the things that it created in the world that I didn't want to have in the world? What were the unwanted impacts? So for instance, I would overtalk in an interview and the result is that I wouldn't get a job, people wouldn't take me seriously. Another unwanted impact would be I would overwork many hours. So I overwork many hours to ensure I succeed. What's the unwanted impacts of that? I leave myself exhausted, tired. Yeah? What are the other unwanted impacts of me being I'm not good enough, nobody wants me? It would be I would try hard to fit in, but however hard I tried, I always had this experience of I don't belong and I don't fit in, right? What are the unwanted impacts of that? The unwanted impacts of that were I avoid speaking to people, I avoid opportunities. And then an unwanted impact would be I miss opportunities. And then what's the unwanted impact? Missing opportunities. The unwanted impact is my business doesn't grow. I feel stuck. I don't progress past where I am, right? So take this on, have a look. Your interpretation that you made, when you're being it, what's the unwanted impact? What are the things that you have in your life that you don't want to have in your life as a result because of that way of being? So what I'd like you to do is to write down at least 6 sections. And I'm now going to take you on to the next section. So here we are, we're still on this section. It's still the same one, right? It's still breakthrough, But now we've got a second section to it. So pause this video if you need to. Only go on to this second section of breakthrough when you've written at least 6 points for the first section of breakthrough. So now, under breakthrough, I'm going to ask you some questions. What is your life going to look like 10 years from today if you continued to be this way? Now, be really honest with yourself. What is your life going to look like if you continued to be this way? Yeah? Look at those unwanted impacts. Imagine another 10 years of these. So for instance, for me, I was seeing that I'm just not good enough, nobody wants me. And another 10 years of that was going to lead me in a business that hadn't grown, feeling stuck, not having sold myself effectively, not having closed deals, being stuck in the same place, and in the end just feeling exhausted, tired, fed up, and really having had enough of everything. That was me getting really honest with myself when I initially went through this process for the first time, okay? So be honest with yourself. What's your life going to look like 10 years from today? And you don't really need to write anything down. This is more just sit and just reflect and just let it land, okay? And if you're doing this work, you should be feeling a little bit depressed, heavy, and yeah, maybe even a little bit anxious or worried. And that's okay. Just be with these sensations, and really I acknowledge you for doing this work, because this takes a lot of courage to get honest with ourselves, right? Okay, well done. So now, still under breakthrough, pick up your pen and I'm going to ask you 3 final questions. So, who invented this? So your interpretation, who invented it? The answer is, I invented this, right? So now write down, I invented this, right? Write down, I invented this. Well done. So now that you get that you invented this, is it true? Is your interpretation true? Is it true? Now, if you're not sure, let me ask you again. Who invented it? That's right, you did, right? You invented it. So now that you get that you invented this interpretation, is it true? No, of course it's not true. So now what I'd like you to write down is this is not true. Well done. So now you should have written down, I invented this, and then you should have written down now, this is not true. Well done. So now that you get that you invented this interpretation, and that this interpretation is not true, do you need to be this way any longer? Well, do you? Do you need to be this way any longer? No, you don't. So now you can write down, I no longer need to be this way. I no longer need to be this way. So, well done for writing that down. And what I'd like you to do now is put your pen down and sit back. And what you should be feeling is a kind of celebration that's inside you. Because right now, what you've seen is that this interpretation that you invented at that event, you've been being that ever since. That you've actually been trying to make sure that you're not that. So for instance, in my case, when I saw this, I saw that I'd spent my life being, I'm just not good enough, nobody wants me. And so I'd spent my whole life doing everything to make sure that I was good enough and that I was wanted. Right? And that my whole life was driven by it. So what I'd like you to do is just let this land, get that your whole life, up until today, up until this moment now, has been driven by being this disempowering interpretation. And that's what I call it. It's a disempowering interpretation. And just get that you invented this, it's not true, and so you just don't have to be this any longer. Well done. And I look forward to seeing you in the next section. So here we are now at section 6 of the 7-point Transformational Mandala. And what I'd like you to do is to write this next title down, Empowered State. Empowered State. So now that you get that you invented that and it's not true and you don't have to be that anymore, how can you be now? How can you now Be when you step into a busy room full of people? How can you be now when you get the opportunity to step on stage? How can you be now when you meet your boss at work? How can you be now when you lead the next boardroom meeting? How can you be now when you step in to the next opportunity of a meeting to give a presentation and make a sale or make an offer? Now that you don't have to be that old way of being, you can now be however you want to be. You can now be possibly powerful, alive, free, unstoppable. Yeah? Any of these words, if any of them inspire you, then take them. How else can you be now? You know, I could be brilliant. I could be dazzling. I could be, you know, whatever it is that inspires you. What is that way of being that's now accessible to you now? So what I'd like you to do is, under this section, empowered states, I'd like you to write down, now I can be, and pick 3 words. On screen now, you can see a whole series of words that you can choose from. Any of these that inspire you, just choose them, just take them, right? Really, really well done. So now, underneath empowered state, you should have now I can be and 3 words that truly inspire you. Absolutely brilliant. Really well done. And as you write these down, just allow yourself to open up to the possibility that you can now just choose to be these things. Now, it doesn't mean that our disempowering interpretation, as you've written down earlier, is just going to disappear. It will probably always be there. You know, like for me, this story of I'm just not good enough, nobody wants me, whenever I get challenged or things don't go to plan or fall apart, I often feel a little bit of anxiety or worry because it's there again. However, now that I'm aware of it, I don't have to be it. I can just be aware of it, but it doesn't own me anymore. And instead of being that, I can now choose to be however I want to be in every given moment. And that's what you've now got the opportunity, the possibility, the access to, is this completely new way of being. Now I can be, and write your 3 words down that most inspire you. Well done. And here we are now for the next section. So here we are at the final section of the 7-point Transformational Mandala. And the final section is full expression. So if you can write down the 7th title, full expression. So now, what I'd like you to do is to reflect upon what becomes possible for you if you took on being this empowered state, right? So if you took on being alive, free, and unstoppable, what becomes possible for you? You should, if you're doing this work correctly, have a feeling of anything. Anything's now possible. You can now accomplish anything you set your mind to if you chose to be this way. Now, what are the things you've always wanted to do? What are the things you've always wanted to succeed in? And if you took on this way of being, do those things then become possible? Yes, they do. So what are they? Write them down. Now I can travel the world. Now I can become highly successful in business. Now I can create the lifestyle of my dreams. And now I can be an international speaker. Now I can be featured on the front page of a magazine. Now I can, what is it? Write down and keep writing. I'd like you to write down at least 10 things that now become possible for you through taking on this way of being. And as you write them down, really feel it, because this isn't make-believe. This is really true. With this new way of being, you truly can fulfill and achieve all these things you've always wanted to. So really enjoy writing these things down. Celebrate, enjoy this, right? So again, stop this video if you need to, write 10 things that now become possible for you, and just make sure they really inspire you. And then after this section, I've got a little bit of a debrief and I'm going to give you a short assignment. So well done, and I'll see you in the final section. Well done for having completed the 7-point Transformational Mandala. So now I want to make sure that you don't go back to the life that you once knew. Okay, So right now, you're in a kind of place where you'll have seen something either minor or huge that's altered the way you're being, which now enables you to access this new future. But everybody else around you still knows you how you used to be. So what I'd like you to do is to share this insight with 5 people in the next 24 hours. Now, why do I say this? I say this because until you communicate it or speak out this insight to other people, you're just going to go back to your life as you know it. Why? Because it's easier. But if you actually express to people this transformation that you've been through, this insight that you've had, it's then going to enable you to not go back to it. So if you say to somebody, "Hi John, I've just done this exercise online and one of the assignments was for me to share it with people that I know and I just want to tell you about it. So I saw this thing that happened to me when I was younger and this happened, and at the time I was thinking, I'm not this, I'm that." I interpreted it myself as I'm not this, I'm that. And I've been thinking that ever since. And the unwanted impacts have been that I've procrastinated, I haven't played full out, I've wasted my life, I haven't taken myself seriously. But now that I've seen that, I get that I invented it, it's not true, and so I don't have to be that way anymore. And so what I'm committing to doing now, or to being, is unstoppable, focused, alive, free, whatever it is, and then state what's possible for you now. So what's possible for me now is to really go for that job I've always wanted, to lose weight, to whatever it is, and share that with people that you know, right? And then even end it with what you're committing to take on from now on. What is it that you're choosing to do differently in your life? And then finally, to complete this section, actually diary in just 1, 2, or 3 actions. 3 actions that's going to have you finally begin being this for real outside in your world, in your life, right? So don't go back to the life that you once knew. Share this breakthrough with 5 people in the next 24 hours, and then finally write down 3 actions that you're going to take to actually begin being this way for real outside in your life, in the world. Really well done, and thanks so much for having honored yourself, for having given yourself this time, because I just love sharing this with everyone. My life has become extraordinary because of the transformations that's become possible for me literally through applying this method. So really well done, and if you've got any comments or any questions, please feel free to write to me anytime. Well done, and go forth, and remember, choose the dream and live the dream.